Hey there. Ever feel like you're sprinting on that hamster wheel, chasing success, but ending up just exhausted?
Yeah.
You're not alone.
Nope.
Today's deep dive is all about escaping that always on entrepreneur grind and reclaiming your well being.
And that's not just about feeling better, although let's be honest,
Right.
who doesn't want that? It's about realizing that your well-being,
Right.
it's really the secret sauce to better decisions,
Yeah.
a more energized team, and ultimately a more successful business.
It's funny how we often see self care as this, like, nice to have,
Right.
when it's really the foundation,
Yeah,
isn't it?
absolutely.
Which is why we're diving deep into Balance Your Business by Corey Whiteland and Christine Michaelis. They go way beyond the usual platitudes and get into the nitty-gritty of what stress does to us and, more importantly, how to break free from it.
And they do that by first acknowledging that stress, well, it's not always the enemy. It's a primal response. Like, it's hardwired into our biology, right?
Yeah.
Back in the caveman days, it was the difference between surviving a saber-toothed tiger encounter and, well,
Oh, no.
not surviving.
Right? Talk about a high-stakes performance review.
Right.
So our bodies are still reacting as if every deadline is a tiger about to pounce. No wonder we get those tight chest, sweaty palms. Our inner cave dweller is freaking out.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that the book dives into the science behind all of this.
Yeah.
They explain that our amygdala, that's the part of our brain responsible for processing emotions, it can't always distinguish between a real threat, like that tiger,
Right.
and a perceived threat, like a demanding client or packed to-do list.
So basically, our brains are sending out the danger signal, even when there's no real physical danger present.
Yeah.
Talk about miscommunication.
Right. And to make matters worse, the amygdala then triggers a cascade of reactions in the body, releasing hormones like adrenaline and cortisol that send us into fight or flight mode. It's
Yeah.
like our body is hitting the panic button over and over again.
Okay, so let's unpack this chain reaction a bit more.
Okay.
You mentioned the amygdala, but then what happens? Where do these stress hormones come into play? I think understanding the mechanics of it can help us make those practical changes.
Absolutely. So the amygdala sends out the alarm signal
Yeah.
to a part of the brain called the hypothalamus.
Okay.
Think of it like mission control.
Okay.
The hypothalamus, it then activates the autonomic nervous system, which controls all those automatic functions like our breathing, heart rate, and digestion.
Ah, so that explains why we might get those physical symptoms like a racing heart or that pit in your stomach feeling when we're stressed.
Right.
Our body's literally preparing to fight or flee.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's prepping us for action, even if the only action we need to take is to reply to an email or meet a deadline. And here's where it gets really interesting, and this is where Whiteland and Michaelis, they really go deeper than most.
Okay.
They talk about how constantly being in this heightened state of alert, it takes a toll, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, even spiritually.
Okay, I'm really curious to dig into these different layers of stress because I think as entrepreneurs, we tend to power through the physical signs, right?
Right.
But then we're left feeling drained in all these other ways and don't understand why.
Yeah.
Let's start with physical stress because I think we can all relate to that feeling of being completely burnt out. What do they say about it?
Well, they point out that physical stress, it's more than just feeling tired,
Mm.
right? It's about the cumulative effect of long hours, lack of sleep, poor diet, even things like sitting at a desk all day.
Right.
They argue that we often don't make the connection between how we're treating our bodies and how we're feeling in our work.
It's so true. When I'm swamped, I practically live off of coffee and takeout.
Right.
It's no wonder I feel completely wired and tired at the same time. But what about those less obvious forms of stress? What are some of the signs of mental, emotional, and spiritual stress that they highlight?
Well, they explain that mental stress often shows up as that feeling of being constantly on, like your mind is racing, even when you're trying to relax.
Yeah.
You might find it hard to focus, be forgetful, or have trouble sleeping.
Oh, I know that feeling all too well. And I bet many of our listeners do too.
Right.
It's like your brain is a browser with 20 tabs open at once.
Exactly. And then there's emotional stress.
Okay.
This one can be sneaky because it often masks itself as irritability, mood swings, or a feeling of being overwhelmed by even small tasks.
Yeah.
It's like your emotional reserves are depleted.
And they connect that feeling of depletion back to the whole stress response cycle, right? Like
Yeah.
if our bodies are constantly pumping out stress hormones, eventually we're going to run out of steam.
That's exactly it. And this is where the concept of energy drainers comes in, which
Yeah.
is one of my favorite takeaways from the book.
Okay.
Whiteland and Michaelis argue that we all have these things in our lives. certain tasks, people, even environments that consistently drain our energy.
Ooh, energy drainers. That's a term I think we can all get behind. And I love how they emphasize that it's not just about the big obvious stressors, right?
No.
It's often the little things that chip away at our energy over time.
Absolutely. And those energy drainers, they can be so different for everyone, you know.
Yeah.
For one person it might be that client who constantly bombards them with last-minute requests.
Oh, yeah.
For another, it could be the constant pressure to be active on social media, or that never-ending to-do list that
Yeah.
follows them everywhere.
Yes. And it's so easy to just dismiss those things as like just part of the job when we're like, in the thick of it,
Right.
especially in the fast-paced world of entrepreneurship.
Exactly. And that's why Whiteland and Michaelis, they really encourage us to get really honest with ourselves, right?
Yeah.
About what those energy drains are in our own lives. They provide a bunch of exercises and prompts in the book, actually, to help you identify them.
Because once you know what they are, then you can actually do something about them, right?
Yes. And that's where the book's core metaphor comes in, unpacking your backpack.
Okay, tell me more about this backpack because it feels very symbolic,
Right.
and relatable too.
It's such a powerful image. The idea is that we're all carrying around this invisible backpack filled with stuff,
Okay.
past experiences, um, limiting beliefs, fears, those should statements we tell ourselves, all the things that are weighing us down.
Wow. I'm already feeling lighter just thinking about unpacking some of that baggage. But I imagine it's not always easy to even recognize what's in there, let alone like start letting go of it.
You're absolutely right. We often carry this stuff around like unconsciously.
Yeah.
But Whiteland and Michaelis, they walk you through this process of identifying what's in your backpack, figuring out what's no longer serving you, and this is key, intentionally choosing to release it.
So it's not just about like identifying those energy drainers, but actually like changing our relationship to them. It's about reclaiming our power, right? Like instead of feeling like we're at the mercy of our to-do lists and our inboxes, we can choose how we respond.
Precisely. And that's where mindfulness comes in,
Okay.
which is another big focus of the book. They argue that by developing a mindfulness practice, we can create that crucial pause, right?
Right.
Between a stimulus like a stressful email or a demanding client
Yeah.
and our reaction.
Oh, that pause is so important. It's that moment where we can catch ourselves before we spiral into like, stress or overwhelm. I know like when I get like a barrage of emails first thing in the morning, my instinct is to just like go into like reactive mode.
Right.
But if I can just take a few deep breaths before like diving in.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of mindfulness. It's
Yeah.
not about becoming some kind of Zen master who never experiences stress.
Right.
It's about building that muscle of awareness, that ability to just observe our thoughts and feelings without judgment, which then gives us more choice in how we respond.
And they offer a bunch of really practical mindfulness
Yeah.
techniques in the book, right? Because I think sometimes people they hear mindfulness and they think it has to be this big elaborate thing.
Yes. And they debunk that myth right away.
Yeah.
They emphasize that even just a few minutes of mindful breathing, a short meditation, or a mindful walk in nature
Yeah.
can make a huge difference.
It's about finding those little pockets of peace throughout your day, even when it feels like everything is like chaotic, around you.
And that's where their advice on technology really resonated with me.
Yeah.
They're not anti-technology, not at all.
Right.
But they do emphasize the importance of using it strategically so it works for us, not the other way around.
Okay, yes. This is huge.
Right.
Especially for entrepreneurs who often feel tethered to their devices.
Right. They talk about setting boundaries with technology, like designating specific times to check email, silencing notifications, and creating tech-free zones in your home.
It's funny how we often resist those boundaries, but then when we actually set them,
Right.
it's so freeing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can actually have a conversation without checking my phone every 5 seconds.
Exactly.
What else do they suggest in terms of like, taming the tech beast?
Well, they're big proponents of using technology to actually enhance your productivity and well-being,
Okay.
not detract from it.
Mm-hmm.
They recommend several apps for things like time management, task organization,
Yeah.
and even mindfulness.
So it's about being intentional about the tools we use and how we use them.
Exactly. And that intentionality, it extends to how we manage our time, like overall.
Okay.
They're big advocates of calendar blocking, which is something I know some people have like a love-hate relationship with.
I'll admit, I used to be one of those people who resisted structure. I thought it would like stifle my creativity.
Right.
But then I actually tried it and it was like a game changer.
Yeah.
I felt so much more like in control of my time.
Right.
And ironically, I had more time for creative thinking because I wasn't constantly feeling like scattered.
That's exactly what Whiteland and Michaelis argue. They say that
Yeah.
by scheduling in time for focused work, for breaks,
Mm.
for creative brainstorming, even for those energy-giving activities we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
we actually free ourselves up to be more present and productive in all areas of our lives.
It's like that saying, what gets scheduled gets done, right?
Right.
And when you're like intentional about scheduling in those things that that nourish you, that's where you really start to see the magic happen, both personally and professionally.
I couldn't agree more. It's about moving from that reactive, always on mode to a place of conscious choice and creation.
Right.
And that's what's so empowering about this book.
Yeah.
It gives you the tools to step back, examine those ingrained patterns, and start making choices that align with your well-being, both in and out of the office.
Because ultimately, isn't that what success is all about? It shouldn't come at the expense of our health, our relationships, or our sanity.
Right.
It's about finding that sweet spot where we can pursue our passions without burning ourselves to a crisp.
Well said. And that's why I think this book is so valuable for entrepreneurs, especially those who are just starting out or are feeling the pressure to do it all.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that prioritizing your well-being, it isn't selfish, it's strategic.
Right.
It's an investment. It's an
Yeah.
investment in yourself, your business, and ultimately in a more fulfilling life.
So, to wrap this up, if you could give our listeners just one thing to take away from this deep dive, one thing they can start doing today to create more balance in their lives, what would it be?
If I had to pick just one, I'd say start paying attention to your energy.
Okay.
Notice what drains you. Notice what energizes you,
Yeah.
and start making small but intentional shifts to create more of the latter in your life. It could be as simple as taking 5 minutes to breathe deeply before checking email, or setting a boundary with a client,
Right.
or scheduling in a walk in nature. These small acts of self-care that can have a ripple effect, leading to more balance, more joy, and ultimately more success in all areas of your life.
I love that. It's about like tuning into those subtle cues from our minds and bodies and honoring what we need to thrive. So listener, as you go about your week, I have a question for you to ponder. What's one small step you can take today to start shifting from that feeling of overwhelm to a place of greater balance and well-being? Until next time, keep diving deep.